Here we are, another tasting, but today we're tasting wine. It is something I might do more often on this channel. I haven't done it yet, but I think wine actually has a really cool place not that far off from people who love beer. And there tends to be somewhat of a dividing part there where some people are like, oh, I only drink craft beer, or I'm really into craft beer, but wine isn't their thing, or they're super winos and aren't that much into craft beer. I kind of want to merge those two together because I think there's a lot of flavors that can be very similar to beer as there is to wine and vice versa. And I thought that we would actually kind of go through wines that were kind of similar to beer, and particularly sour beer. Because that's like the first introduction to where I started to realize, wow, there's kind of a correlation here. And it can be very, very synonymous sometimes, especially when you get into like Brettanomyces and Lactobacillus and Pediococcus and that kind of thing. A lot of beer people might think that, oh, you know, a Cabernet is going to be a Cabernet, is going to be a Cabernet, or, yeah, I like red wine at a party occasionally. I homebrewed wine once. I had made a Merlot wine kit, but there's so much out there. So we have 3 wines today, and we're going to talk about them and compare them to beer, basically. Now, we don't have any beer comparisons directly with it, but separately, we're going to kind of go through these. I had her choose 3 wines I thought were really fascinating. One of which we've had. We have both had this. You have not had this, am I right?
I've had that.
She has had this, so she chose it knowing what she was doing. This we have not had. This is recommended to us by her manager. It's supposed to be really cool wine. We will go through all of it. Let's start with this one here. So I'll let you take it from here. What is this here and why'd you choose it?
All right, so to begin with, we're going to have a little bit of Vinho Verde. Vinho Verde is an area where wine is produced in Portugal, actually, northern part of Portugal. It is not a grape, but lots of people confuse it with a grape. It's light, delicious, and ever so slightly effervescent. Little spill, too.
Little spill. It's all good. So why is it effervescent? How did that happen?
So when they bottle it with a little bit of carbonic acid to get a little bit of spritz to it.
How is that different than like champagne or the sparkling wine?
For other sparkling wines, they will full-on dosage it.
Dosage is they when they add sugar basically back into the wine, sort of how you would prime a bottle of beer. Or sometimes we'll do, you can bottle beer what's called krausening, and that is where you add fresh wort into a finished beer, and that fresh wort carbonates the beer in the bottle. Similar sort of concept with dosaging. So a pet knot, which is what this orange one is we'll get to next, is bottled a little early before fermentation is complete, so it naturally carbonates. This is different. This is carbonic acid.
Which is now what they're doing. Originally what would happen was they did malolactic fermentation. And malolactic fermentation would happen inside the bottle where the sugars eat away and cause a kind of bubbly, what was considered an off flavor. However, the people of northern Portugal thought that this was the type of wine they wanted to have. And so now they artificially make it a little bit above this.
Are there other wines that do have this stuff happen sometimes that's outside of this region?
Yeah, you'll also see it happen in with Chocolat or Chocolina.
Oh, Chocolina, okay.
Yeah,
okay, awesome.
You'll get a little bit of spritz
Which is a crazy spelling. TXLI, what would you call that? Like, it's sort of appley.
Yeah.
A little appley.
Yeah. I mean, Vinho Verde is literally green grapes or green fruit.
Right.
And that's what they wanted it to be, was something that was a young wine that you drink now. It's meant to be refreshing, meant to be enjoyable. And it's really good during summer.
Yeah, it really is. Now, you could liken this to maybe like a Pilsner of the wine world, I would say. Something where you're showcasing sort of like a light, like
super refreshing.
What would be the malt, the grape itself. You're not necessarily focusing on like a huge fruit or hops equivalent of an IPA.
Right.
It's just this clean, dry, really nice finish.
Slight bit of bubbles.
Slight bit of bubbles.
Like very slight, but
so
makes
for like
it
a
little
summertime, this is
and they're
incredible.
lower in alcohol for wine. I want to say, like, let's see what this guy's at. 10.5%.
10.5%. That's not that bad.
Yeah.
Well, it's not bad at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go on to the pet knot. Now we're going more into something a little bit different. When I first had this was my mind was kind of blown. So this is an orange wine, and why don't you explain exactly what an orange wine is while you open that?
So orange wine is kind of if you made white wine like you do red wine. So typically for white wine, you crush the grapes, you immediately get juice out, it filters, right? You don't keep it on the skins. Red wine you keep on the skins and it extracts all this color and tannins. White wine, we don't typically do that. Orange wine is where you leave it on those skins for a long time. It gets a lot of the flavor from the skins and a lot of color from those white grapes, hence turning them orange. This is an orange wine pet nat, which is what we were kind of talking about earlier.
Yeah, so what they're doing for this one, it's super carbonated.
Every bottle, like, people are kind of dorky about pet nats because every bottle's a little bit different. Orange wine pet nat.
It is actually orange. That's actual orange color. So this is the bottle. It's cool. It's weird. It looks like you find it like on a pirate ship or something, like in a case of
It's out of Greece. It's a Greek.
It's a Greek one. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce
wine.
that. Paleocuraceo?
I mean, we would just completely botch this name if we tried to say it correctly.
So this thing is crazy. This, off the smell, is huge in Brettanomyces. Like, huge smoke, like, real funky barnyard. I mean, just crazy. It smells like a funky beer. It really does. Like a really funky beer. But it finishes like, not sweet's the wrong word, but like, not as like dry and funky. Like it has a big funk nose to it, but then almost has like a fruited sour beer finish to it. This is as close to a sour beer in a wine world as you can almost have.
Wow.
It's like a lambic. It's like a fruited lambic. Like you put like...
But for wine, crazy funky.
Yeah, crazy funky for wine. Really cool. When the first time I had this, it reminded me of a lambic. It reminded me of something really funky. It's really fun. It has just so much going on to it that I didn't think wine even had this into it. I mean, it's incredible. It's really unique. How else would you describe it? Would you say?
Yeah, I think it's got fruit to it. It's got some sweetness maybe, but it's like but like an incredibly dry version of that. And I think it's because of the funkiness with it.
Really cool. And now if this is natural, I'd love to harvest the dregs out of this. Oh. Okay, so let's go on to the third one here. Now we have not had this. Like I said earlier, her manager recommended this to us. We love Cab Francs, which we think it is, right?
It's 100. Yeah, it definitely is.
Okay, so this is a Cab Franc. And what does the name mean again?
Kazako means, what on earth is this?
So that's the name of the wine. It supposedly is supposed to be really, really cool. I love that Brettanomyces can transfer into wine as heavily as it can into beer. Same with Lactobacillus or Pediococcus. You get these crazy flavors.
So this is out of the Loire Valley, specifically out of Bergyle. So anytime you're in a place called Bergyle in the Loire Valley, you're going to be having Cab Franc. This is a totally organic, biodynamic producer.
This is going to sound horrible, but it smells like dirt in the best way possible. You know, like you go like into a field and you like someone toils all day long and it churns it all up and you go, God, I'm like in the country right now. That's what it smells like. It smells like the countryside. Man, that is really great. That is not quite as Brett forward as I've had some other Cab Francs or Gamay, but it's definitely really earthy, sort of like soily, like it's hard to describe, almost like a leathery sort of thing going on.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of Brett coming out of that for sure. Like if there's Brettanomyces is in this.
And people are weird about Brett in wine. Some people love it and think it complements wine. Other people think it's like a sin in wine. You should never have any of these. It's really up to you. You know, it actually has more fruit than I expected.
Me too. It has a lot more fruit. It has that like dirty earthiness to it, but then like it ends with like a more of a fruity finish. Yeah. Almost like if you were to like throw some like fruit into a funky beer or something. It almost has that sort of balance to it. Which
it
is
has
cool.
Like the nice like barnyard funk.
But then it goes into like a more like fruity finish.
Yeah, it actually balances itself quite nicely.
You know, we've had wines that like Gamay, which is a grape, tend to be kind of on the funkier side. Cab Francs tend to be on the funkier side. I'm comparing it to beer, of course, but definitely I would say even generally speaking, that's kind of a consensus, you know, that sort of like dirty, weird, like funky Brett stuff.
out of France.
Out of France,
Yeah.
right, of course.
They won't get
Yeah.
quite as funky here in the United States just because of our terrain and everything else. You can still find some funky wines out of the United States, definitely. And you're starting to see more and more natural winemakers doing really cool things. But you don't see it quite as much.
Amplify Wine is probably the funkiest California wine I've ever had.
Oh, the Dirty and Rowdy, too.
The Dirty and Rowdy is good, too. And the Cruise Wine, which I haven't had yet. But I've heard it's really. We have a bottle at home. We haven't had it yet.
No.
You've had it, the Cruise stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They say it's pretty.
It's good.
Pretty funky.
It's funky but balanced. Like whereas Dirty and Rowdy is like, oh wow, that's really funky
It's
for
really
California
weird. Yeah,
wine.
yeah. So I'd say these are just 3 great examples of something that if you like really funky beer, if you like high acidity stuff, you like sort of lambics. Or just something really dry and crisp and fun and light, especially for this one in particular I'm talking about, then go for it. I'd say get out there and start exploring. These wines are not that expensive. I'd say they're probably the most expensive one is what, $20? Probably.
Yeah, this one.
This one?
This one I think is 30.
That one might be 30, but the rest of these are like 15 to
All
20
of them. This one, 10?
$10, yeah.
10.50.
So there's so much stuff out there. I would say wherever you are, go out there, go to like a really local wine shop. Don't go to like Bevmo, although Bevmo can have some okay stuff for sure. But don't go to a Bevmo, don't go to those kind of places. Find like your local wine shop and ask some questions. Like, you know what? I like some really like Brettanomyces stuff. I like some really weird funky wine. And you will find some great stuff for really affordable that could just blow your mind. So that's my recommendation. Go out there and explore and have fun out there. I don't know. Is that how I should end it?